Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepless Scientist, a quiet place in the cosmos where your thoughts can gently unwind and knowledge becomes a soft lullaby for the night. Tonight's journey will take us into the hidden world of your brain's time-travelling abilities, a realm where memories echo like distant lanterns and tomorrow forms itself quietly in the background of your mind. But before we begin, feel free to take a slow breath, the kind that loosens the weight of the day. You might dim the lights, or let a soft hum in your room become the backdrop of the moment. And if you'd like, I would be delighted to know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always comforting to imagine all of us arriving together from different hours, different cities, different little pockets of the world. When you're ready, settle in, let your shoulders drop a little, and we'll begin this gentle journey into the time travel machine inside your mind. If your thoughts drift, that's perfectly fine. Just let them wander. The story will wait for you. You might not think of your brain as a traveller. After all, your body stays right where it is, resting quietly, maybe wrapped in a blanket or just lying still. Yet beneath that stillness, your mind is constantly reaching into places far beyond the present moment. It slips backward to retrieve the voices of people you haven't seen in years. It steps forward into imagined scenes, your plans for tomorrow, the conversation you think you might have next week, or even a dream of who you wish to become years from now. This gentle movement through time is something you've done for as long as you've existed, and yet it often goes unnoticed, like a soft tide brushing against the shore. Scientists call this remarkable ability mental time travel, but here we can think of it as a quiet inner drifting, a way your mind allows you to revisit what was and preview what could be. It's something uniquely human, woven into the structure of your memories and your imagination. When you remember how the sun felt on your skin during a childhood morning, or when you picture the taste of your coffee tomorrow, your brain is performing the same delicate motion, stepping outside the present, carrying you along with it. What makes this ability so special is that it isn't just about recalling facts, it's about reliving. When you think of a moment from your past, a walk on a familiar street, a conversation with someone you cared about, the sound of rain hitting your window as you studied for an exam, you don't just know it happened, you can almost feel it. There's a sense of presence, of being there again, even if only faintly. This is something far deeper than simply remembering data. It's your episodic memory, the part of your mind that stores the lived chapters of your life with textures, sounds, emotions, and colours. Imagine it as opening a small wooden box inside your mind. Each time you lift its lid, the memory inside reshapes itself slightly, not like replaying a perfect recording, but more like unfolding a piece of paper that has been folded many times. It carries the creases of the past, yet each unfolding adds something new. A detail you didn't focus on before, a feeling you didn't fully understand at the time, or an interpretation softened by distance. This gentle reconstruction is part of the reason why some memories change or blur, but it's also what allows you to learn from them. Your mind doesn't just store your past, it curates it, and as your thoughts drift into the future, the same systems begin to stir. The same regions that help you re-experience the past quietly start assembling possibilities of what hasn't happened yet. Your brain doesn't simply create these scenes from nothing. Instead, it gathers fragments from your memories. The way your office looks, the way your friend usually reacts to a joke, the feeling of waking up early, and it uses those pieces to predict the shape of tomorrow. Every imagined future is, in a way, a mosaic built from tiny pieces of yesterday. As you lie here tonight, think of the last time you planned something simple, like preparing a meal. Before you chopped a single ingredient, your mind had already drafted a little preview: how long it might take, which ingredients you'd reach for first, the scent of spices warming in the pan. All of that unfolded inside your imagination before it ever happened. This quiet previewing is part of your mind's natural rhythm. It helps you navigate choices, anticipate outcomes, and feel a sense of direction. Sometimes, without even trying, your mind drifts into these little timelines. You might catch yourself replaying a conversation, imagining what you could have said differently. Or you might picture the day ahead as though you're already walking through it. These moments are not distractions. They're small windows into the machinery of your brain, always preparing, always weaving stories out of what was and what might be. What's even more fascinating is that these journeys happen gently, often without your awareness. You can be washing dishes and suddenly you're revisiting a memory from 10 years ago. You can be waiting at a red light and suddenly you're living in a hypothetical version of next month. Your mind slides between decades with the same ease that your eyes drift across a page. Tonight, as we begin this exploration, you might notice your own thoughts starting to wander in similar ways. Maybe a memory appears, uninvited but familiar. Maybe an idea about tomorrow slips quietly into your thoughts. Let them come. They're not interruptions. They're part of the same natural movement we're talking about, the same inner tide that lifts you gently from one moment to another. This first step is simply about noticing how effortlessly your mind moves through time. Nothing to analyze, nothing to control, just an awareness that inside the stillness of your body, an entire timeline is unfolding, looping back into what was and stretching softly toward what might be. As we drift deeper into this journey, we'll begin to explore the places where those memories live, how they take shape, and how your brain stitches together your inner past and the future you're quietly building. For now, let yourself rest in this gentle truth. Even in the quietest moment, even as you're lying still, your mind is already traveling, and it has been all your life. When you close your eyes and let your thoughts drift backward, something gentle begins to unfold. A memory rises, maybe faint at first, like a lantern glowing behind fog. It might be a moment you haven't thought about in years, or something as ordinary as the way the light looked in your kitchen yesterday morning. And yet, despite the distance and time, there's a quiet familiarity to it. You can almost feel the air of that moment, the small details tucked inside it, the presence of you who once stood there. This ability to re-enter a moment, to sense it not as a fact but as an experience, is at the heart of what makes human memory so extraordinary. Scientists call this type of remembering episodic memory, but here we can simply think of it as the memory of lived stories, chapters from your personal timeline that still carry texture, colour, emotion, and a faint sense of place. It's different from remembering information like the capital of a country or the answer to a math question. Those kinds of memories belong to a different system, one that holds knowledge without needing you to feel it. Episodic memory is more delicate. It holds the sound of laughter from someone you once loved, the scent of a home you no longer live in, the warmth of a summer afternoon you haven't felt in decades. It is, in many ways, the memory of your own life unfolding. What makes episodic memory so unique is the sense of presence it gives you. You're not just recalling the event, you're revisiting it. You can remember the soft pressure of your shoes on a gravel path, or the uneven rhythm of rain against a window. You might even remember the way your heart felt, nervous, hopeful, calm, because episodic memory ties emotion and experience together. It allows you to step back into your past with a kind of inner awareness, a feeling that you were once there in full. This sense of re-being is something the psychologist Endel Tulving described as autonoetic consciousness, a gentle phrase meaning the awareness of oneself through time, but in simpler terms it's just the quiet truth that when you remember, part of you returns. This returning isn't a mechanical process. Your brain doesn't pull up a perfect recording stored like a file on a computer. Instead, it rebuilds the memory each time you revisit it. Think of it like unfolding a piece of parchment that has been folded many times. Each unfolding brings the memory back into the light, but the creases, the soft distortions remain. Some details sharpen, others fade, and occasionally new interpretations appear, shaped by who you are now rather than who you were then. This is one of the most tender qualities of human memory. It changes gently with you. Imagine a memory from your childhood, perhaps sitting on the floor of a room that no longer exists. Maybe the walls were a different colour back then, or maybe you don't quite remember the colour at all. You might recall the feeling of the carpet beneath you, though you can't remember the pattern. You might remember a toy, even if its edges are blurry. What you do remember with surprising clarity is the emotion, the safety, the excitement, the curiosity. Memory is not built from perfect visual accuracy, but from small, meaningful fragments stitched together into something that feels whole. This gentle reconstruction is not a flaw, it's a feature. Your brain is designed to store the essence of an experience rather than every detail, because the essence is what helps you understand your life story. Later, when you reflect on a memory, your mind fills the gaps using pieces of knowledge, imagination, and emotion. It weaves the memory into a narrative that makes sense for you now. This is why a memory can feel richer or softer over time, why the past sometimes becomes a guiding companion rather than a fixed location. This entire process depends on several parts of your brain working together. Scientists often talk about the hippocampus, a small curled structure deep inside your mind, as the place where your memories are first shaped. You can imagine it as a quiet librarian who carefully gathers moments as they happen, arranging them not by category but by feeling and time. Surrounding this librarian is a network of regions that help provide meaning, context, and emotion, like a series of rooms filled with tiny, glowing fragments waiting to be assembled. When you recall a memory, your brain doesn't open a drawer and pull out a file. It walks through these rooms, picking up pieces and fitting them together until the moment feels familiar again. Because memory works this way, two things can happen at once. You can remember clearly, and yet the memory can shift each time you revisit it. This might be why certain experiences feel more poetic with age, why a childhood memory becomes warmer or gentler, as if softened by time. It's also why memories tied to difficult emotions can become stronger or more intense, because the act of revisiting them rebuilds them with fresh emotional threads. All of this happens quietly, often without you realizing how many small pieces your mind is assembling. There is also something comforting in knowing that your memories are living, not frozen. They breathe with you. They grow with you. Even the memories that sting can slowly change their shape, becoming easier to hold as the years settle around them. And the joyful memories, those bright ones that surface when you least expect, can become anchors, guiding you or reminding you of who you are beneath everything happening in the present. As you breathe softly now, you might let one simple memory rise to the surface, not to analyze it, not to judge it, but just to feel its edges. Notice how your mind fills in the spaces, how it paints the moment with warmth or softness. This is your episodic memory at work, delicate, intricate, and profoundly human. It is one of the core mechanisms of your brain's quiet time travel, allowing you to wander backward whenever you need to reconnect with the person you once were, and to find comfort or clarity in the echoes of yesterday. If you picture your memories as tiny glowing constellations scattered across the sky of your mind, then somewhere deep within that sky sits a quiet guide, charting their locations, keeping them from drifting too far apart. This guide is a small structure tucked deep in your brain, shaped something like a curled seahorse if you were to look at it from the right angle. Scientists call it the hippocampus, but here we might think of it simply as the keeper of your inner map, a gentle navigator who helps you find your way back to moments that no longer exist in the outside world. The hippocampus doesn't work alone. It's part of a soft, interconnected network that wakes up when you recall something meaningful. But the hippocampus is often the first to stir, especially when you attempt to locate yourself in a memory. Imagine standing in a place you haven't been in years. Maybe it's an old classroom, a family home, or a quiet street you walked down long ago. Even though the place is distant in time, your mind knows how to find it, just as your body knows how to return to a familiar neighbourhood. This feeling of orientation, the sense of I know where I am in this memory, is the gift of the hippocampus. It builds maps not of roads or cities, but of experiences. It remembers where things happened, the order in which events unfolded, and how the pieces fit together. If you think about the day of your graduation, or the last time you saw someone important to you, the hippocampus helps place each detail in the right spot within the story, so that the memory feels coherent when you revisit it. Without this gentle guidance, memories would float around disconnected, like pages scattered by the wind. But your inner navigator isn't simply retrieving maps, it's constantly updating them. Every time you remember something, the memory is gently reshaped. Some scientists describe this as reconsolidation, a long-term meaning that each act of remembering is also an act of rewriting. But here we can think of it as the hippocampus dipping its brush back into the paint and softening or sharpening certain strokes. It doesn't do this to distort your past, it does it to help you understand your story as you grow. The memory you revisit at 20 years old is not the same memory you revisit at 50, because you, the person holding that memory, have changed in countless subtle ways. You can feel this when you recall a moment that once carried heavy emotion. Over time, the sharpness of that emotion often softens. The edges become rounder, less overwhelming, or perhaps a joyful memory becomes warmer each time you return to it. Like a photograph touched by sunlight, the hippocampus helps shape these shifts, integrating the past with the insights of the present. In this way, remembering is not passive, it is an active dialogue between who you were and who you are now. Supporting the hippocampus is another important region that often works quietly in the background, the prefrontal cortex. You can imagine it as the gentle editor standing beside the mapmaker, helping arrange the pieces into a smooth narrative. While the hippocampus retrieves and rebuilds, the prefrontal cortex organizes. It helps you place events in order, what came first, what followed, and weave them into the story of your life. Without this collaborative guidance, memories would feel like flickering images rather than chapters connected by meaning. Together, these regions create the experience of episodic memory, the feeling that you can step back into a past moment and navigate it naturally. You can walk through an old house in your mind and know where the furniture was. You can remember which friend stood beside you in a photograph even if the picture isn't in front of you. You can recall the layout of a cafe you visited only once, because your brain turned that moment into a small internal map. At times, these maps are vague, more like impressions than fully rendered models. At other times, they feel astonishingly vivid. That variation is part of the quiet beauty of memory. What makes all this even more interesting is that the hippocampus is not only concerned with where you've been, it also plays a role in imagining where you might go. When you plan a future scenario, the hippocampus begins to assemble fragments, much like it does when recalling a past moment. It takes pieces from many different experiences and arranges them into a scene that has never existed. In this way, your inner map is constantly expanding, reaching into both your past and your future. Consider the simple act of imagining a future trip. Even if you've never been to the place you're thinking about, your hippocampus uses bits of other memories, streets you've walked, buildings you've seen, sounds you've heard, to build the imagined location. The result is not perfectly accurate, but it feels plausible, comforting, familiar. You're not truly there, of course, but your inner navigator is already charting the path, giving you a sense of what the journey might be like. This blending of memory and imagination is one of the brain's most gentle gifts. It allows you to preview possible outcomes, prepare for challenges, and dream of better days. The hippocampus is more than a storehouse of the past. It is a bridge to the future. It helps you rehearse conversations, anticipate situations, and imagine how you might feel in a moment that hasn't yet arrived. If you think about the way you navigate your daily life, you might begin to notice how often you rely on these quiet inner maps. When you picture your bedroom before walking into it, when you anticipate where you parked your car, when you remember the layout of a grocery store aisle, your hippocampus is quietly guiding you. It carries thousands of tiny maps, each one shaped by experience, and each one ready to lead you through a world that constantly changes around you. And if you close your eyes now and allow a single memory to surface, you may feel the subtle guidance of this inner navigator. Even if the memory is faint or incomplete, notice how your mind fills in the missing pieces, where the doors were, how the room felt, who stood beside you. These details, whether sharp or blurred, are part of the map that your hippocampus helped create. They're not perfect replicas, but living, breathing impressions that travel with you through time. In this quiet interplay between memory and mapping, your brain reveals one of its most profound abilities: the capacity to hold your history not as cold data, but as a landscape you can walk through, as a place you can return to whenever you need comfort, clarity, or simply a reminder of where you've been. When your mind begins to wander, perhaps while you're lying still, or staring at a familiar ceiling, or letting warm water run over your hands as you wash dishes, you might feel thoughts drifting in a direction you didn't choose. A memory surfaces, maybe unannounced, or the outline of a future possibility appears, like a shape forming behind frosted glass. This gentle drifting is not a sign of distraction. It's a sign of a quiet network in your brain coming alive. Scientists call it the default mode network, but here we can imagine it as a softly lit room behind your thoughts, the place where your mind goes when it's allowed to float freely. Picture this room as something warm and still, lined with shelves holding small fragments of your experiences. There's a chair in the center, and whenever your mind sits down to rest, the shelves begin to glow. Memories drift forward. Future possibilities unfurl. Scenes collapse into one another, forming mosaics of past and future that feel strangely natural. This room doesn't belong to any single part of the brain. It is woven from several regions working in slow harmony, including the hippocampus, which retrieves memories, and parts of the prefrontal cortex, which helps shape the stories your mind tells itself. The reason it's called the default network is because it becomes active when your mind is not focused on the outside world. If you're solving a math problem or navigating a busy street, this room dims, stepping quietly into the background. But the moment the world falls away, the moment you stop forcing your attention outward, this inner room brightens. It invites you to step inside, to wander your own timeline, to explore the soft edges of who you once were and who you might become. This wandering is not aimless. Even when it feels like your thoughts are drifting without purpose, the network is doing something deeply meaningful. It helps you understand yourself. It organizes your past, explores your future, and links the two together so that you experience life as a continuous story rather than a series of disconnected pages. Without this inner room, your memories would be scattered and your sense of identity would feel fragmented. One of the most calming aspects of this network is that it works without urgency. There is no rush inside this space. If a memory arises, it does so gently. If a future scenario forms, it appears with a kind of softness, like fog lifting from the surface of a pond. It is no coincidence that many of the insights people experience, small realizations, personal reflections, creative sparks, arrive when they are relaxed and not thinking deliberately. The default network is most alive when you're quiet enough to hear it. Think about the last time you were lost in thought while taking a walk. Your feet moved almost automatically, but your mind drifted far from the sidewalk. You may have found yourself thinking about a conversation from earlier in the week, or imagining how you might respond to something someone said. You may have pictured an event that hasn't happened yet, or replayed a moment from years ago. These kinds of mental wanderings are the signature of the default network working gently in the background, stitching together pieces of your life to give you a sense of continuity. What's remarkable is that this inner room supports both your past and your future. When you recall a memory, the network gathers its fragments, soothingly piecing them together until the moment makes sense again. When you imagine something that hasn't happened yet, it draws from those same fragments, people you've known, places you've been, emotions you've felt, to build a new scene. In this way, the network acts like a quiet workshop, rebuilding your past and constructing your future with the same materials. Sometimes the drifting can feel random, a thought from childhood, a sudden image of an old friend, a worry about something far ahead. But beneath that apparent randomness is a rhythm, the mind returning to unresolved threads, experiences that shaped you, or decisions that lie ahead. The default network guides you through these threads, not with sharp logic, but with gentle nudges, showing you what still needs attention and what still matters to you. This room behind your thoughts also plays a role in the sense of self, the feeling that you are the same person today that you were yesterday, even though you've changed in countless ways. When you remember a moment from your past, the network blends that memory with your present understanding, letting you see it through your current eyes. When you imagine your future, it brings your past along, helping you picture yourself in new places while still feeling like the same you. This weaving of past, present, and future into a single thread is one of the most beautiful, quiet processes happening inside your mind. And if you have ever noticed how memories and imaginations can merge during moments of rest, how thinking about one thing leads unexpectedly to another, how a memory sparks a future scenario, or how a hope reminds you of something long forgotten, this is the default network gently blurring the boundaries of time. It doesn't separate your timeline into rigid compartments. It lets them flow into one another like colours in watercolour paint, merging softly at the edges. Right now, as you're listening, you might notice this room beginning to open. Perhaps a memory has drifted up, uninvited but welcome. Perhaps a thought about tomorrow has already formed quietly. Maybe your mind has begun to wander without you trying at all. Let it. This wandering is where understanding begins. It is where your inner time machine warms itself, where the threads of your story gather, where meaning emerges without effort. This room, this quiet, glowing space, will continue to guide you throughout your life. It will help you revisit the moments that matter. It will help you imagine the moments to come. It will help you make sense of who you are becoming. And the more gently you listen to it, the more clearly it will speak. There comes a moment, often without warning, when your thoughts slip forward instead of back. You might be lying in bed, your body still, the room dim and calm, and suddenly your mind begins to picture something that hasn't yet happened. An errand you need to run tomorrow, a conversation you expect to have, a peaceful moment you hope will arrive. These scenes appear almost automatically, forming themselves from fragments of memory and imagination. They are not memories, and yet they feel familiar. They are the earliest murmurs of tomorrow calling to you. This gentle act of picturing the future is something your brain is constantly doing, even when you don't notice it. Scientists sometimes call it episodic future thinking, but here we can think of it more simply as your mind's soft ability to sketch possibilities. While episodic memory allows you to step into the rooms of your past, episodic future thinking allows you to peek into spaces that do not yet exist, using your past as quiet blueprints. Imagine, for a moment, that your thoughts are like a painter standing before a blank canvas. To create an imagined scene, say, arriving at work tomorrow, the painter doesn't need to invent everything from scratch. Instead, they reach for familiar colours, the memory of your workplace lighting, the expression your coworker wears when they greet you, the feel of the morning air on your skin, the echo of your footsteps in the hallway. These elements come from moments you've lived, yet here they are, rearranging themselves into a new configuration, forming a future that hasn't arrived. The same parts of the brain that help you recall the past also awaken when you imagine the future. The hippocampus, that gentle mapmaker, gathers fragments from memory. The prefrontal cortex, the subtle organizer, arranges them into a coherent scene. And the default mode network, the softly glowing inner room, holds the entire process with a spacious stillness that allows new images to form. In this way, imagining the future feels almost like remembering it in advance, because the brain uses the same machinery for both. It helps to think of this as the mind's forecasting engine, not forecasting in the analytical, mathematical way a computer might predict weather, but forecasting through lived experience. Your brain uses the patterns of your life, your routines, habits, emotions, and memories to suggest what is likely to happen next. When you think of brewing coffee tomorrow morning, you can almost smell it. When you imagine a meeting, you can sense the tone it might carry. When you picture a trip you haven't yet taken, the place feels familiar even before you arrive. This is your brain blending yesterday into tomorrow so smoothly that you sometimes forget how remarkable the process is. You might notice this forecasting in small moments. Consider the last time you were walking toward a door. A fraction of a second before your hand touched the handle, your mind had already predicted its texture and temperature. Or think of the way you anticipate someone's reaction before finishing a sentence. Your brain is constantly running these tiny mental previews, shaping your next action, guiding your decisions, helping you feel prepared for what comes next. This ability is not only comforting, it is deeply practical. For early humans, imagining future events was a quiet but essential survival tool. Before a storm arrived, the brain could construct a mental scene of shelter. Before a journey, it could anticipate routes, dangers, and opportunities. Before a conflict, it could picture possible outcomes and choose safer paths. In many ways, the human mind became a time machine long before the body learned to build tools or cities. The future was always present in the background, gently whispering guidance. Even now, this evolutionary gift shapes your daily life. When you plan your day, you're weaving a soft thread from present to future. When you prepare for a conversation, you're rehearsing emotional landscapes you haven't yet crossed. When you picture yourself growing older, imagining the home you might live in, or the person you might become, you're projecting your current self into a distant possibility, mapping out a version of your life that feels meaningful. This quiet projecting forward can sometimes bring warmth, especially when imagining something hopeful. A reunion, a goal achieved, a peaceful chapter ahead. It can also bring gentle caution, like when you picture the consequences of a decision before making it. Both directions are useful. One helps you move toward joy, the other keeps you safe from harm. Sometimes, imagining the future can feel almost effortless. You might be sitting in a cafe, sipping something warm, and suddenly your mind leaps ahead to the rest of your day. You see yourself finishing a task, returning home, or preparing dinner. Other times, the future feels harder to grasp, especially when life is uncertain. On those days, imagining tomorrow might feel blurry, like looking through glass touched by rain. But even then, the mind continues to sketch possibilities, creating quiet outlines that help you navigate your path one step at a time. What's interesting is that these imagined futures often carry emotion even before they occur. When you picture a stressful event, you may feel a small knot in your chest. When you picture a joyful moment, your breath may soften. The brain rehearses emotions ahead of time so the body can prepare. It's part of a natural internal rhythm, one that links your thoughts and feelings across time. Right now, as you listen, you might notice the faint tug of tomorrow forming in the background. Maybe you're thinking about something you need to do when you wake up, or someone you might talk to, or a plan that's waiting on the horizon of your week. Let those thoughts drift in gently, like ripples on a calm pond. They're part of your mind's quiet way of caring for you, helping you step into the future with more ease than you realize. Your brain is not simply replaying your life, it is shaping the life you're moving toward. With every small forecast, every imagined scene, every quiet rehearsal, you're charting the next step in your timeline. This isn't prediction in the rigid sense, it's something softer. It's the brain using all the moments you've lived to build the moments you haven't yet reached. It's the future unfolding in the space between memories. And as we drift deeper into this exploration, you'll begin to see how these future visions connect with the larger tapestry of your identity. How the brain uses your past to sculpt your sense of tomorrow, and how this gentle, forward-looking rhythm gives your life a continuous, meaningful thread. There is something quietly astonishing about the way your mind leans forward, even when you're not aware of it. Beneath your everyday thoughts, beneath your plans, your routines, your drifting reflections, your brain is constantly preparing for what comes next. Not in a frantic or mechanical way, but in a soft, almost instinctive rhythm, like a tide rising gently along a shore. This forward-leaning ability is sometimes called the prospective brain, a name that simply means your mind is built not just to remember what has already happened, but to anticipate what has not yet unfolded. You might think of the prospective brain as a soft companion, walking just a few steps ahead of you on your path through life. It's the part of your mind that creates a sense of direction, that nudges you toward future possibilities, that whispers, "This is what you might do next." Even in the smallest moments, this forward glance is present. When you reach for a light switch before fully entering a room, your brain has already pictured the space brightening. When you lace your shoes in the morning, your mind is imagining the places you'll walk. When you're cooking dinner, your thoughts naturally drift toward the conversations, tasks, or moments waiting later that evening. Your ability to imagine the future is not a bonus feature. It is a foundational part of who you are. Long before humans built maps, clocks, or calendars, the brain was internally charting future events, guiding decisions and shaping behavior. In many ways, the mind became a time traveler far earlier than the body became a builder of civilizations. To understand this better, imagine yourself standing at the edge of a forest thousands of years ago. You feel the wind, notice clouds gathering, sense the shift in temperature. Even without language or tools, your brain begins to sketch possibilities, A storm approaching, a need for shelter, a route to safety. It uses memories of previous storms, previous shelters, previous dangers. It does not merely recall the past, it transforms those memories into predictions, forming a bridge from yesterday to tomorrow. This quiet ability helped early humans survive, thrive, and navigate a world filled with uncertainty. The remarkable thing is that your brain still works this way today, even though your modern challenges look different. Instead of weather patterns and predators, you might be forecasting the mood of a meeting, anticipating how long it will take to complete a task, or imagining how someone will respond to your words. And yet, the same ancient rhythm of using the past to shape the future continues. This rhythm is supported by a gentle cooperation within your brain. The hippocampus brings stored moments forward. Moments with similar feelings, similar environments, similar choices. The prefrontal regions arrange those fragments into a meaningful preview. The default network provides the quiet mental space for these possibilities to rise. Together, they form something like an internal rehearsal room where futures can be sketched, revised, and softened before you ever live them. Even small actions require this rehearsal. Before you lift a cup of tea, your mind has already imagined its weight. Before you step into a crowded room, your thoughts have already prepared for the faces you might see. Before you speak, you've considered how your words might land. This is the prospective brain humming in the background, creating fluidity in your movements and clarity in your choices. There's also a gentle emotional dimension to this forward gaze. When you imagine something joyful, meeting a friend, watching a sunset, visiting a familiar cafe, your body often responds with warmth even before the moment arrives. When you anticipate something stressful, a quiet tension might appear, as if preparing your body to adapt. These emotional forecasts are part of how your brain protects you, helping you navigate life with a blend of cautiousness and courage. Sometimes the future you imagine is simple: doing laundry, finishing a task, buying groceries. Sometimes it stretches far beyond the immediate horizon, your hopes for next year, your vision of the person you want to become, the life you dream of building. Each of these visions, whether small or large, is an act of the prospective brain weaving possibility into your sense of self. And yet, imagining the future is not just about preparation, it is also about meaning. When you picture tomorrow, you're not just predicting events, you're shaping your identity. You're creating a quiet thread that links who you are today with who you hope to be. In this way, the prospective brain is not merely a forecasting engine, it is a storyteller, softly writing the next chapter before you arrive at it. You might notice this storytelling in the moments when you fantasize about a goal, learning a skill, taking a trip, making a change. These thoughts are not unrealistic wanderings. They are your brain's way of exploring possible paths. When something matters deeply to you, the mind rehearses it more vividly, building emotional momentum that nudges you toward action. It's why imagining success makes you more likely to pursue it, and why picturing a peaceful future can bring comfort even during difficult times. There's a tenderness in how the prospective brain blends uncertainty with hope. The future, after all, is never guaranteed, yet your mind steps toward it anyway, shaping expectations and gently preparing you for countless scenarios. This delicate balance, holding the unknown while still imagining possibilities, is one of the most human abilities you possess. You might think back to a time when you were preparing for something significant, perhaps a presentation, a reunion, a journey. Notice how your mind visited the event again and again, adjusting details, rehearsing emotions, refining your sense of readiness. This wasn't anxiety, or at least not only anxiety. It was your brain trying to take care of you, helping you walk into the future with more presence and less surprise. Even now, as you listen, your mind may already be forming a faint outline of tomorrow. tiny predictions, gentle expectations, soft imaginings. They might be practical or emotional or entirely abstract. Maybe you're thinking of the moment you'll wake up, or a task you need to finish, or even a quiet hope you haven't said aloud. Whatever rises is part of this natural forward-flowing rhythm, the same rhythm your mind has followed for thousands of years. In the softness of this moment, you might let yourself appreciate how seamlessly your brain does all of this. It gathers your past, shapes your present, and creates sketches of your future, all while you rest. It's a kind of inner wisdom, a quiet guide walking ahead of you, illuminating the path just far enough for you to take your next step. There are moments in your day when everything seems to unfold with a kind of quiet precision, as if your body already knows what will happen before your mind catches up. You reach for a cup without looking, and your fingers close around the handle as though guided by an invisible thread. You step off a curb and somehow judge the exact height, landing smoothly without conscious calculation. You hear someone inhale beside you, and before they speak, you already sense the tone or intention in their voice. These small, seamless actions come from a gentle machinery within your brain, one that anticipates the world a heartbeat before you experience it. This anticipatory ability may sound mysterious, but at its core, it's simply the brain's way of keeping you safe, steady, and in sync with your surroundings. Scientists sometimes describe this as a form of predictive processing, a long-term meaning that your mind is quietly forecasting the next tiny moment so you don't have to consciously think through every step. But you don't need to remember that phrase. What matters here is the soft truth behind it. Your brain is always a fraction of a second ahead, smoothing your path through the world. Imagine walking through a familiar room at night. Even in dim light, you know roughly where the table is, how far the wall extends, and where the doorway leads. Your brain fills in the gaps with a soft internal map built from countless previous moments. As you move, it compares what your senses are taking in with what it expects to find. If something matches the expectation, the shape of a chair, the height of a shelf, your experience feels effortless. If something doesn't match, a toy left on the floor, a door that wasn't fully closed, you feel a tiny jolt, a quiet signal that something is out of place. In that brief moment, your brain adjusts its prediction, updating your internal model so the next step can be smoother. This gentle forecasting happens constantly, even when you're not aware of it. Before you lift your hand, your mind predicts the movement. Before you speak, it predicts the rhythm of your words. Before you take a bite of food, it predicts the texture and taste. And if the taste surprises you even slightly, you feel that quick flicker of awareness telling you something unexpected has happened. These tiny moments of prediction and correction create the flow of your experience, allowing you to glide from one moment to the next without getting lost in the details. You might think of the mind as a quiet musician playing along with the world, listening closely to its rhythm and adjusting its notes so the melody stays harmonious. When the world's rhythm matches the mind's expectation, everything feels smooth. When something is offbeat, the musician listens again, recalibrates, and finds the melody once more. It's not an abrupt or mechanical process. It's more like a gentle dance between what you expect and what you encounter. There's a soft elegance in how your brain makes these predictions. It draws on memories, old and recent, to shape its expectations. If you've used a particular door handle thousands of times, your brain knows exactly how it feels and how much force it needs. If you've walked the same street for years, your mind predicts the texture of the pavement and the likely flow of people. Even the gentle anticipations, like expecting a warm cup to feel warm or the ocean breeze to be cool, are small examples of the brain blending memory with sensing. These predictions aren't limited to physical movements. They extend into social and emotional realms as well. When you prepare to meet someone you know well, your mind forecasts the tone of the conversation, the warmth of the greeting, the possible direction the interaction might take. That's why a sudden change in mood or behavior can feel jarring. It breaks the quiet rhythm your brain had anticipated. And when someone responds in a way you expected, you feel a subtle ease, as though your inner world and the outer one are aligned. Emotions themselves are part of this prediction dance. If you picture something stressful that might happen tomorrow, a challenging conversation, a moment of uncertainty, your body may feel a small ripple of tension even before the event occurs. Your brain is preparing you, rehearsing possible reactions so you're not caught off guard. And if you imagine something joyful, a visit from a friend, a peaceful morning, a moment of achievement, you might feel an early warmth, a soft smile forming without effort. The emotional preview is your mind's way of lighting the path ahead. One beautiful aspect of prediction is how much it frees you. Without this quiet, forward-looking process, every step would require careful thinking. Every sound, every sensation, every movement would feel new and disorienting. But because your brain gently anticipates each moment, life feels coherent. It feels like a flowing narrative rather than a series of disconnected snapshots. Your mind fills in the spaces between moments, stitching them together into something resembling continuity. What's even more soothing is that your mind is generous in its predictions. It doesn't demand precision. It works with soft guesses rather than rigid calculations. Imagine children running across a playground. You can predict their movement, but not exactly. Your brain accepts that flexibility. It sketches broad outlines and adjusts them in real time, embracing uncertainty without fear. This graceful adaptability is one of the reasons humans navigate complex environments with such ease. Of course, there are moments when predictions fail, when life surprises you in both challenging and wonderful ways. A sudden laugh you didn't expect, a piece of news that shifts your understanding, a small coincidence that makes you pause. In those moments, your brain quickly updates its inner world, reshaping its expectations to match the new reality. This gentle realignment is not a flaw. It's a sign of the mind's sensitivity to the unfolding story around you. You can feel this subtle prediction process even now. As you listen, your mind may already be anticipating the cadence of the next sentence, the softness of the tone, the calm direction of the story. And when the words shift slightly from what you expected, there is a pleasant sense of novelty, a reminder that your mind is engaged in a quiet dance with the unfolding moment. This gentle forecasting is not about being right or wrong. It's about moving through the world with as much grace as possible, preparing yourself with warmth and care. It's your mind's way of holding you just a little ahead of time, smoothing the edges of the future before you arrive there. And in that soft space between expectation and reality, your inner time machine continues its quiet, elegant work. When night settles in and the world around you grows quiet, something remarkable begins to happen inside your mind. Your body may lie still beneath blankets, breathing softly, but your brain does not fall entirely silent. Instead, it enters a state of gentle experimentation. It begins to weave together fragments of memory, imagination, emotion, and possibility in ways that feel strange while they're happening, yet familiar in their purpose. These drifting images, these shifting landscapes, these softly glowing scenes, you know them as dreams. But within the context of your brain's time-traveling abilities, dreams are something more. They are the nighttime workshop where your mind rehearses futures, processes the past, and recalibrates the emotional threads that tie your life together. If you think of your waking mind as a storyteller who works from morning until evening, then your dreaming mind is a kind of quiet editor who enters the room after hours. It doesn't rewrite your life, but it rearranges, repaints, and blends your experiences, creating combinations you might never consider during the day. A familiar place blends with a childhood memory. A stranger's face appears beside someone you know. A moment of fear merges with a moment of excitement. The logic of waking life loosens its grip, but not because the brain is confused, rather because it is testing possibilities in a space where the rules have softened. Dreams are one of the purest examples of your brain performing mental time travel without your conscious involvement. Throughout the night, especially during a phase called rapid eye movement sleep, often shortened to dream sleep, your brain becomes active in its own gentle way. It replays and reshapes memories, sorts through emotional experiences, and simulates situations that may occur in the future. Nothing about this is random. Each dream pulls from a quiet reservoir of thoughts and feelings that linger beneath the surface of your day. Think of a dream you've had that felt unusually vivid. Maybe running through a town that didn't exist, or speaking to someone who is no longer part of your life, or standing in a place that seemed familiar but impossible. The imagery may have been strange, but the emotional tone likely made sense. Dreams often choose emotional truth over literal accuracy. If something has been weighing on your mind, it might appear symbolically. If you're preparing for something important, your brain might rehearse the feeling of it, even if the dream itself makes little sense on the surface. Scientists sometimes describe dreams as a form of overnight simulation, but here we can imagine them as nighttime rehearsals, soft, hazy previews of possible tomorrows. When you dream about searching for something, your brain may be rehearsing the experience of uncertainty. When you dream about being unprepared, it may be expressing the tension you carried during the day. When you dream about a joyful event, your mind might be allowing you to taste the emotion before the event even arrives. These rehearsals are not prophecies, they're emotional and cognitive exercises, helping your brain test responses, strengthen pathways, and sort through what matters most. The hippocampus, the gentle mapmaker we visited earlier, becomes particularly active during sleep. It sorts through recent experiences, deciding what to keep, what to soften, and what to blend into your long-term memory. Meanwhile, the emotional centers of your brain, regions that hold fear, hope, affection, and anticipation, also awaken. They bring color to the dream world, creating scenes that feel meaningful even if they're incoherent. At the same time, regions involved in logical reasoning rest more deeply. This combination, heightened emotion, active memory, softened logic, is one reason dreams flow with such freedom, shifting scenes without explanation. But there is another purpose to this nightly drift. During dreams, your brain explores futures you have not yet lived. This may not feel obvious when you dream of strange landscapes or surreal encounters, but look beneath the surface and you often find familiar emotional patterns. Preparing, coping, longing, adapting, solving. Dreams let your mind test out different versions of the future in a safe, fluid environment. You might never experience the exact event your dream portrays, but your brain still gains insight from the rehearsal. It's similar to how a musician might quietly practice chords before a performance, or how a dancer warms up with simple motions before stepping into the spotlight. The dreaming mind warms up your emotional responses, polishing your readiness for whatever tomorrow may bring. It might sound poetic, but it is also deeply practical. By simulating different possibilities, both good and difficult, your brain reduces the shock of experiencing them in waking life. There's a kind of gentle wisdom in how dreams gather and reorganize your emotional world. If something has hurt you, your dreams might revisit the feeling in a softer or symbolic form, helping you process what your waking mind might try to avoid. If something excites you, your dreams may exaggerate the feeling, helping solidify the memory or strengthen your anticipation. If something is unresolved, your dreams may bring it to the surface, not to trouble you, but to remind you that it seeks your attention. And yet, dreams are not limited to emotional work. They often spark creativity, bringing together ideas that would never collide during the structured thoughts of daytime. Many artists, writers, and thinkers have awakened from dreams carrying new insights, unusual connections, or gentle solutions to problems they couldn't solve while awake. Your brain, in the loosened logic of dreaming, can imagine possibilities that don't fit neatly into daylight reasoning. In this way, dreams expand your mental universe, letting you explore versions of yourself and your life that you may not have considered otherwise. As you drift through dreams each night, your brain also finds ways to preserve important memories. It strengthens the experiences you want to keep and lets go of those that no longer serve you. Sometimes a dream offers you a final glimpse of something before it fades into the quiet distance of your mind. Other times it reinforces something precious, a person, a moment, a hope. The process is quiet, tender, and deeply personal. Even now, you might recall a dream from childhood, one that stayed with you without explanation. Or perhaps a recent dream comes to mind, lingering in fragments. These memories of dreams are themselves part of the larger tapestry your brain weaves each night. They remind you that during sleep your mind is still alive, still exploring, still travelling across the contours of your inner world. As you breathe gently now, you might imagine your mind preparing its nighttime workshop, the soft room where memories, emotions, and future possibilities blend. In your dreams, your brain continues the same journey we've been tracing, moving backward, forward, and sideways through time, creating meaning, finding balance, and gently preparing you for the world you'll wake up to. There is a quiet thread running through your life, one so constant that you rarely stop to consider it. It stretches from the earliest memory you can still touch, all the way to the faint outline of the person you hope to become. This thread is your sense of self, not just who you are in this moment, but who you have been across the years and who you imagine yourself becoming in the days ahead. Your brain weaves this thread gently, not with strict logic or perfect precision, but with something softer, a continuous story in which you are both the narrator and the main character. To sense this story, you only need to reach back into a memory. Pick something simple, perhaps a moment from last year, or a scene from a place you once lived. As you bring that moment forward, notice how naturally you place yourself in it. You don't see the memory from the outside, like a distant observer watching a stranger's life. Instead, you slip back into your own perspective. You remember the feeling of standing there, the rhythm of your breath in that moment, the sense that I was the one living this. This ability to re-enter your memories as the protagonist is part of what psychologists call autonoetic consciousness, a gentle phrase meaning the awareness of yourself travelling through time. You don't need to remember the term. What matters is the feeling it points to, the sense of continuity between the you who stood in that old moment and the you who is listening now, perhaps in a quiet room, perhaps winding down for the night. That connection, the bridge between past and present, is something your brain maintains with remarkable care. When you remember an experience, your mind reconstructs it in a way that preserves your presence, your emotions, and your perspective. It gives you a way to visit your own history with a kind of soft familiarity. But this story does not move in only one direction. Your mind also projects you forward into places you haven't yet been. Just as you can step into a memory, you can also step into a possibility. The moment you imagine yourself doing something tomorrow, walking into a room, talking to someone new, tasting a cup of tea, you take on the role of a future version of yourself. You don't watch that future self from far away. You feel as though you are the one standing there. This projection is quiet, natural, and deeply human. It is also one of the main ways your brain helps you understand who you're becoming. When you picture your future self, even briefly, you create a subtle connection between the person you are today and the person you hope to be. This connection may feel faint, like a pencil sketch, but it is powerful. It shapes your choices, your behavior, and your sense of direction. You're not simply reacting to life, you're moving toward a version of yourself that you've already imagined. To feel this more clearly, try a simple reflection. Picture yourself 1 year ago, not in vivid detail, just a soft impression. Where were you? What mattered to you then? What were you worried about, hopeful for, or trying to understand? You might notice that some of those concerns no longer weigh on you, or that certain hopes have shifted or grown. The you from a year ago is still part of your story, but they are not exactly the same person as the you listening now. Now, imagine yourself 1 year from today, not as a firm prediction, but as a gentle possibility. Where might you be? What might feel important then? What kind of strength, softness, or clarity might you carry? The image does not need to be perfect. It only needs to exist. Even the faintest picture of your future self gives your mind something to reach toward, a thread stretching forward, adding shape to the horizon. This act of imagining your future self is not fantasy. It is one of the ways your brain maintains continuity in your identity. It helps you make decisions that align with your long-term values. It anchors your actions to a sense of meaning. And it reassures you that your life is not just a collection of unrelated moments, but a story unfolding gently, one day at a time. Your brain doesn't do this with heavy effort. The process is woven into the same networks that handle memory. The same places that store your past also help shape your future. When you imagine yourself a year from now, your brain borrows textures from your memories. It uses places you've been, voices you've heard, emotions you've felt. It rearranges these fragments into something new, giving shape to possibilities that feel real enough to move you forward. There is a subtle comfort in knowing that your identity is not rigid or fixed. It grows with you. It bends, adapts, softens, and strengthens in response to the experiences you gather. Your future self is not someone separate from you. It is simply a continuation of the thread you're already weaving. Each day adds another stitch, another layer of meaning, another soft chapter. This continuity is especially important during moments of uncertainty. When life feels chaotic or unclear, imagining your future self can provide grounding. It reminds you that even if the present moment feels tangled, the story continues. There are still pages ahead. There is still room to grow, to heal, to change direction, or to rest. The mind gently encourages you. You have been many versions of yourself before. You will be many more still. Right now, as you let your breath settle, you might feel this continuity as a subtle warmth, a sense that you have travelled through moments, both tender and difficult, to arrive here, and a sense that tomorrow, and the days beyond it, will carry new contours shaped by the choices you make and the hopes you hold quietly inside. Your identity is not a static picture. It is a moving tapestry, stitched across time. It is the child you once were, the person you are now, and the person you are becoming, all woven into a single ongoing thread. Your brain, with its remarkable ability to navigate the past and imagine the future, keeps this tapestry alive. It carries your sense of self gently through the hours, reminding you that you are more than a moment, you are a journey. There is a certain tenderness in realizing how much of your life is held together by memory. Every choice you make, every habit you keep, every quiet belief about who you are rests gently upon the moments you've lived. Memory is the thread that connects your past to your present, shaping the direction of your future. And because this thread feels so natural, so woven into every breath, you rarely notice how extraordinary it is. You simply remember, and through remembering you become. But there are times when this thread frays, sometimes gradually, like colours fading in sunlight, sometimes suddenly, like a book with entire chapters missing. When memory falters, the quiet machinery that lets you travel backward and forward in time trembles. The brain's internal map loses some of its landmarks. The gentle navigator we explored earlier, the hippocampus, can no longer guide you to certain rooms within the library of your mind. This experience is known broadly as amnesia, though here we will think of it more softly, as a library in which some rooms have gone dim or where certain doors remain quietly locked. Amnesia does not erase a person. It does not take away their capacity to feel, to hope, or to imagine, but it can interrupt the continuity of their inner timeline. If you picture your life as a string of lanterns illuminating the path you have walked, amnesia is what happens when some of those lanterns blur or flicker, or when their light grows too faint to guide you. You can still move forward, but the road behind you feels less familiar, less detailed, less alive. The hippocampus sits at the heart of this experience. When it is injured, inflamed, or disrupted by illness, trauma, or degenerative disease, the ability to recall past experiences becomes fragile. The person may remember facts, skills, or names because those belong to different systems in the brain. But the lived moments, the warmth of a birthday, the sound of laughter, the texture of a childhood memory, begin to slip away. It is not that these memories are intentionally erased. Rather, the brain can no longer reach them. What makes this especially poignant is that the hippocampus is not only responsible for recalling the past, it also helps construct the future. When the past cannot be reconstructed, the future cannot be fully imagined either. The same fragments that build yesterday's memories are also the building blocks of tomorrow's possibilities. Without access to those fragments, the mind's time machine loses both its rearview mirror and the map for what lies ahead. You can imagine this by thinking of someone trying to plan a simple outing. Without the ability to recall past experiences of similar outings, how long they took, how they felt, what challenges arose, the future becomes harder to sketch. The person may know how to perform certain steps, but the emotional and experiential context is missing. Their mind cannot easily simulate the scene. It is like trying to draw a landscape without remembering what landscapes look like. Yet even within this fragility, there is a quiet dignity. People living with memory loss often retain something essential: their present moment awareness, their capacity to respond with kindness, their ability to form new bonds, even if the old ones feel blurred. The story may be fragmented, but the storyteller is still there. The thread may be thinner, but it is still connected to the person's heart. There is also an emotional dimension to amnesia, one that requires gentle understanding. When a person cannot recall certain experiences, they may feel disoriented, not because the world around them has changed, but because the inner narrative they rely on has lost some of its structure. Imagine waking up in a familiar room but feeling uncertain about how you arrived there, or knowing someone's face but not remembering the moments that shaped your relationship. These experiences are not frightening by themselves. They become difficult when the mind tries to bridge gaps that memory can no longer fill. Even so, the human mind adapts. When pieces of the past are missing, the brain often learns to rely more heavily on other senses, other patterns, or the steady presence of loved ones. A familiar scent might bring reassurance, a comforting voice might provide structure, a daily routine might create new continuity. The brain weaves new threads around the missing ones, using whatever gentle materials remain available. What is striking is that despite these vulnerabilities, the core of a person's identity can persist. Identity is shaped by more than memory alone. It is shaped by temperament, emotion, the values a person lives by, the connections they hold in the present moment. Memory enriches the sense of self, but it does not exclusively define it. A person with amnesia may lose access to the story they lived, yet they still experience the world with authenticity. They still light up at certain voices. They still respond to kindness. They still dream, even if they do not remember the dream upon waking. In this way, amnesia invites a certain reverence. It reminds us that our inner time travel, our ability to rewind and fast forward through our lives, is something delicate, not guaranteed. It reminds us that the continuity we feel each day is a gift, sculpted by networks working quietly beneath awareness. And it teaches us to appreciate the memories we carry, while recognizing the courage of those who navigate the world with fewer lanterns lighting their path. You might think of the fragility of memory as part of a larger truth, that the mind is both powerful and tender. It builds vast internal landscapes, yet those landscapes depend on the health of tiny neural connections. They rely on the flow of signals through structures as small as a finger pressed against a page. Even the faintest disruption can reshape the story, and yet the story continues. If you let your breath settle for a moment, you might feel a quiet gratitude for the memories that rise when you call them, for the sense of, I have lived this that accompanies even the simplest recollection, for the way your mind holds you through time. And if you know someone who struggles with memory loss, this reflection might help you see the softness in their journey, the way they navigate the present with strength, even when the past feels dim. The fragility of mental time travel does not diminish its beauty. If anything, it amplifies it. Memory may fade, doors may close, pages may blur, but the essence of the person remains. The heart of the story continues, and the mind, even when challenged, finds new ways to move forward in time. There are moments in life when time inside the mind moves differently. Sometimes it stretches backward and refuses to let go. Sometimes it races forward into possibilities that have not happened and may never happen. When this internal rhythm becomes imbalanced, the gentle flow of mental time travel can turn heavy. The same machinery that lets you revisit comforting memories or imagine hopeful futures can, under strain, pull you into places that feel darker or more difficult. But even in these shadows, the mind is still trying to care for you in its own quiet way. To understand this without fear, imagine your mental timeline as a calm river. In healthy moments, the river flows smoothly. You can drift toward the past when you need reflection or wisdom, and you can float toward the future when you need hope or direction. But in certain emotional states, the river becomes tangled. You might drift backward too often or too intensely, sinking into memories that no longer soothe you. Or you might be carried ahead too quickly, swept into imagined worries that drain your strength. Neither direction is the mind's fault. It's simply a sign that the inner currents need gentler guidance. Depression often anchors a person too deeply into the past, especially into moments that carry pain or disappointment. The mind revisits these memories not out of cruelty, but out of a mistaken belief that by examining them again and again, it might make sense of something unresolved. Yet this repeated returning can feel like being stuck in a room where the lights never rise. The brain shifts into a pattern where negative moments feel more vivid, more accessible, more convincing than neutral or positive ones. It is as though the mental time machine has become tuned to only one direction, pulling you backward instead of letting you drift freely. This backward pull can make it difficult to imagine the future with any sense of warmth or possibility. When depression clouds the mind, future scenes feel faded or distant. The ability to project yourself forward, a skill that comes so naturally in healthy moments, becomes muted. It isn't that the person lacks imagination, it's that the emotional colour that normally paints future visions has dimmed. The mind is still trying to protect you, trying to prepare you, but in doing so, it becomes cautious, almost too cautious, refusing to imagine a future that could hurt. Anxiety, on the other hand, tilts the river in the opposite direction. Instead of drifting backward, the mind rushes ahead, exploring hypothetical futures with too much intensity. A conversation, a task, a small decision, all can become amplified into countless possibilities. The brain begins to simulate future scenarios not to encourage growth, but to avoid danger. These simulations can feel endless, looping through what-ifs that the conscious mind can't easily quiet. The future becomes crowded with imagined outcomes, and the present moment feels too thin to anchor you. This forward race is not a failure of the mind. It is an overactivation of a system designed to protect you. The prospective brain, which normally helps you imagine peaceful or meaningful futures, becomes overly vigilant. It scans the horizon for threats, even when there are none. It tries to keep you safe by preparing you for everything at once. And although this intention is kind, the result can feel overwhelming, like standing in front of a storm that hasn't arrived, feeling the wind long before a single cloud appears. There is a third kind of temporal imbalance, one that blends past and future in a way that feels beyond your control. Post-traumatic stress can create moments where the mind is pulled into memories with such force that they feel as if they're happening again. These are not voluntary journeys. They are sudden leaps through time, moments where the brain replays something too vividly because it is still trying to understand or survive it. When this happens, it can feel like being thrown backward without warning, as though the doors of the mental library have opened suddenly to a room you never meant to revisit. It is important to approach these experiences with gentleness. The mind is not malfunctioning in a way that makes it broken. It is using its time-travelling abilities, the same abilities that help you plan, reflect, dream, and understand yourself, but applying them too intensely or without balance. Depression, anxiety, and traumatic memories are not signs that the mind is betraying you. They are signals that certain emotional circuits are overworking, trying too hard to protect you from harm or to make sense of something unresolved. The comforting truth is that the brain is capable of rebalancing. Its networks are flexible, they adapt and heal over time. When the flow of mental time travel becomes too heavy in one direction, gentle practices can help restore equilibrium. Anchoring yourself in the present moment through slow breathing, grounding sensations, or simple mindfulness can help redirect the river. Connecting with someone you trust can give your mind new memories to hold on to, memories that soften the grip of older ones. Even the act of imagining a future that is slightly kinder, even just a little brighter, can begin to shift the perspective. Think about a moment when you felt overwhelmed in the past but eventually found your way back to stability. You were not rescued by a sudden, dramatic change. Instead, your mind slowly regained balance, like a boat settling after a strong gust of wind. The same can happen again. The brain learns, it rewires, it updates its predictions. Even after difficult experiences, it continues to search for gentler paths forward. As you breathe softly now, you might think of your mental timeline as something you can touch with compassion. The past may carry weight, but it also carries lessons. The future may feel uncertain, but it also contains possibilities. And the present, the quiet place you inhabit right now, is a moment of stillness where the mind can slowly recalibrate. In this stillness, the brain's time machine softens, the currents ease, the river becomes gentler. You do not need to force the balance. Simply noticing the flow where your mind tends to drift, how it feels when it moves too far in one direction, is already a step toward healing. Awareness is the first soft anchor. With time, the river finds its way back to a natural rhythm, one where the past guides you, the future inspires you, and the present holds you safely in between. There is something quietly beautiful about watching a child think about the future. You might see it when a child talks excitedly about their birthday, imagining the cake, the candles, or the way a room might look filled with bright colours, or when they ask questions that stretch beyond their immediate world. Where will we go tomorrow? Or, what will I be when I grow up? These early attempts to imagine the future are small yet significant steps in the development of mental time travel. They show us that the ability to drift gently between past and future is not something we're born with fully formed. It is something that blooms over time, shaped by the brain's growing networks and the experiences gathered in the earliest years of life. If you think back to early childhood, your own or that of someone you've watched grow, you might remember that sense of softness around time. A young child lives mostly in the present, reacting moment to moment. Their memories are like small sparks, bright but brief, vivid but often unanchored. They can recall sensations, a favourite toy, a comforting voice, a warm hug, but their sense of when is still forming. Time itself feels fluid, almost like a dream, where events drift without structure. As the brain develops, especially the regions that support episodic memory and imagination, children begin to weave these sparks into more coherent patterns. They start remembering specific days, a trip to the park, a special meal, the sound of laughter from a family gathering. These memories begin to have shape, something like scenes from a story they can revisit. And once these scenes take form, something remarkable happens. Children begin to imagine new scenes. They begin to step into the future with curiosity and creativity. A child imagining their birthday is a perfect example. They may picture the room before it is decorated. They may imagine their friends arriving, or the taste of the cake, or the excitement of opening a present. This imagined scene is not just wishful thinking. It is the child's brain practicing the same skill adults use every day, gathering fragments from previous birthdays, previous celebrations, previous moments of joy, and assembling them into a gentle preview of what might come. In these early attempts, the brain's time machine is warming up, learning how to blend memory and imagination. This developmental blossoming gives us clues about the evolution of mental time travel. If such an ability takes years to fully form in a human child, it suggests that the brain areas responsible for memory and future thinking are complex, intertwined, and deeply connected to our emotional and cognitive growth. It also suggests that mental time travel might be uniquely refined in humans, something that developed slowly across our species' history, allowing us to plan ahead, cooperate, build long-term goals, and create the cultures we now live in. Yet humans are not the only creatures who show glimmers of future-oriented thought. Nature offers quiet hints that other animals have their own versions, simpler, less elaborate, but still intriguing. Take certain birds, for instance. Some species store food for times when resources will be scarce. They remember where they hid their food and choose hiding spots based on future needs. It isn't just instinct, it is a kind of planning. To hide food with the understanding that you will return later is a small but meaningful form of projecting into the future. Or consider primates, cousins of ours whose minds share elements of our cognitive architecture. Some primates have been observed saving tools for later use, even when the future task is not immediately at hand. They may carry a stone for a long distance because they know they will need it to crack nuts at a place far ahead. It is not imagination in the rich, narrative sense humans experience, but it is foresight. It is a flicker of tomorrow appearing in the mind of a creature who cannot speak but still anticipates. There are other examples scattered throughout the natural world. Certain species of fish prepare nests in advance. Elephants mourn and remember. Dogs anticipate their owners, return long before hearing footsteps. Each example shows a whisper of temporal awareness, a recognition that the world changes over time, that actions now influence outcomes later, that memory and expectation intertwine. But with all these glimpses, humans remain unique in one profound way: our autonoetic consciousness, the ability to experience ourselves as the main character in past and future scenes. A bird might remember where it hid food, but it does not step into that memory as a feeling self. A chimpanzee may plan a future action, but it does not vividly imagine its future emotional state. Humans can do both. We can not only picture what will happen, but also picture ourselves inside it, feeling, thinking, reacting, changing. This ability gives every human life a narrative shape. It allows us to think of ourselves as part of a story with beginnings, middles, and chapters still unwritten. It lets us form identities that stretch across decades, woven from things we remember and things we imagine. It lets us hold regrets, hopes, dreams, and lessons as part of a single timeline that feels deeply personal. That timeline is the quiet miracle of mental time travel, and it does not fully emerge until childhood is well underway. A 2-year-old does not yet imagine their future self. A 4-year-old begins to grasp it, but still in simple sketches. A 7-year-old can picture themselves in tomorrow's classroom, wearing a certain outfit, talking to certain friends. By adolescence, the ability becomes richer and more emotional, capable of imagining the long arc of a life, who they might become, what purpose they might carry. These developmental steps mirror the development of the brain's networks. The hippocampus refining its maps, the prefrontal regions strengthening their connections, the default network learning to blend memory with imagination in quiet harmony. The mind becomes a more capable traveller as these regions mature. Even now, as an adult, you carry the full expression of this evolutionary journey. You can think about tomorrow's breakfast or about who you might be 10 years from now. You can revisit a childhood day with the clarity of a dream and imagine a day yet to come with the same emotional texture. Your mind holds the entire stretch of your life, past, present, and future, within a single, ongoing thread. As you rest in this moment, it's comforting to remember that this ability took millions of years to evolve and many years to develop within your own childhood. It is one of the most advanced and delicate capacities the brain has. It helps you navigate the world with purpose. It helps you form relationships, seek meaning, and choose paths. And in the gentle mix of memory and imagination, it allows you to become someone greater than the past alone could predict. There are nights when your mind drifts gently toward the past, brushing against moments you hadn't thought about in years. A familiar face, a warm afternoon, the smell of rain on a street where you once stood, long before you knew where life would carry you next. These memories rise not as perfect recordings, but as tender impressions, little fragments that remind you of who you've been, And in the same way, the brain's natural time-traveling abilities help you move gracefully into the future. They also invite you to care for the past, to strengthen the memories that nourish you, and to hold them with a sense of gentleness rather than strain. Memory is not a rigid archive. It's something alive, fluid, shifting, always adapting. That means it can be strengthened, soothed, and softened through small, quiet practices. These practices aren't about memorizing facts or sharpening focus like a student studying late into the night. They're about nurturing your connection to your own life story, making it easier to revisit the moments that matter in a way that feels calm, warm, and grounded. One of the softest ways to strengthen memory is through visualization. Not the kind that requires effort or precision, but the kind that invites you to step into a moment with a gentle curiosity. Imagine you're recalling a walk you took recently, maybe down a familiar street or through a room filled with sunlight. Instead of trying to recreate every detail, allow your senses to guide you. Notice the way the light fell across the floor. Notice the sound of your footsteps. Notice the feeling of air against your skin. The brain holds memory in layers, and when you activate sensory layers, sight, sound, touch, emotion, the memory becomes richer, more accessible. You're not forcing recall, you're letting it bloom. Another quiet practice is a technique known as context reinstatement, which simply means surrounding yourself with cues that help a memory rise. If you want to recall a moment from a certain time in your life, you might sit with an object from that time, a book you read, a scarf you wore, a photograph taken in soft lighting. The object acts like a gentle key, unlocking rooms in your memory that might otherwise stay dim. A song you once listened to can bring back an entire season. A scent can bring back a childhood kitchen. The brain stores experiences as networks of interconnected details, and touching one detail can awaken the others. For many people, journaling is another soothing way to strengthen memory, not as a task, but as a quiet conversation with yourself. When you write about something that happened, even in simple words, you help the memory settle more deeply. You're giving it shape, giving it a place to rest. Your mind doesn't need eloquence or perfect sentences, it only needs space to unfold. And when journaling is done with compassion, with the intention to understand rather than judge, your memories soften. They become easier to hold. The sharp edges fade, leaving room for clarity and peace. Sometimes, memory is strengthened by being shared. When you tell someone a story from your life, whether joyful or melancholic, the act of speaking it aloud helps organize the memory in your brain. You find the language that describes it. You choose which parts to hold in focus and which parts to let drift away. Human memory is deeply social. We remember more vividly when our experiences are witnessed, held, or understood by someone else. Even speaking memories quietly to yourself in the privacy of your room can help anchor them. But one of the most powerful ways to strengthen memory happens not while you're awake, but while you sleep. When you drift into rest, a gentle and quiet process unfolds inside your brain. Memories from the day gather softly in the hippocampus, the same region that helped you explore your past in earlier sessions. And throughout the night, they are woven into deeper networks, stabilized, smoothed out, and integrated with older memories. Scientists sometimes say that sleep consolidates memory, but here we can imagine it more softly. Sleep is the night gardener who tends to the experiences you planted throughout the day, watering them, pruning them, and helping them take root. This is why restful sleep can make yesterday feel clearer and more grounded when morning comes. A conversation that felt jumbled may suddenly make sense. A detail you couldn't recall might appear with ease. Even emotionally heavy memories can feel more manageable after a night of gentle dreaming, as your brain works to soften the emotional intensity and place the memory in a safer context. In this sense, sleep is one of your greatest allies in caring for your internal timeline. It is the quiet pause between days during which the brain restores, reorganizes, and gently strengthens the story of your life. There is another dimension to memory strengthening, one that has nothing to do with recall and everything to do with compassion. When you approach your past with harshness, it becomes harder to remember clearly. Shame, regret, or self-criticism can cloud even neutral memories, tinting them with emotions that don't belong there. But when you approach your past with warmth, forgiveness, and curiosity, memories open more willingly. They feel lighter. They feel safer to hold. In this way, the emotional quality of attention can either cloud or clarify the past. Imagine holding a memory in your hands as though it were something delicate, like a pressed flower between the pages of a book. If you handle it harshly, it crumbles, but if you hold it gently, it can be appreciated, understood, and preserved. Compassion is the softness that supports memory, making it easier to revisit the past without being overwhelmed by it. You might try this now in a very small way. Bring to mind a moment from today, something simple. Instead of assessing or analysing it, simply observe it. Let it sit quietly in your awareness. Notice the light, the mood, the feeling of being there. This small act of mindful recall strengthens the memory in a natural, effortless way. You're simply lending it your attention, and the mind rewards this attention by making the memory easier to find later. Strengthening memory is not about clinging to the past. It's about caring for the continuity of your inner timeline, tending to the moments that have shaped you so they can guide you gently into tomorrow. When you practice this care with softness, memory becomes less like an archive and more like a living garden, growing in ways that serve your future. As you breathe slowly now, let yourself feel the weight of your memories, not as burdens, but as lanterns lining the path behind you. Each one still shines in its own way, guiding you, grounding you, and reminding you that your mind holds a rich and interconnected story. And every small act of attention, every moment of visualization, journaling, sharing, or simply resting helps keep that story alive. There is a quiet moment, often at the edge of sleep or in the stillness of early morning, when your mind begins to form soft outlines of the future. Not the sharp, rigid kind of future filled with deadlines or responsibilities, but a gentler one, an imagined version of yourself walking through a possibility that feels warm, steady, and achievable. These quiet visions are more than passing thoughts. They are the beginning of what psychologists call future simulation, but here we can think of it simply as the art of building tomorrow. Your brain is remarkably skilled at this. Even when you're not trying, it creates small vignettes of the days ahead. You might picture yourself waking up and stretching into the day. You might imagine a peaceful conversation, a moment of clarity, or a task that feels satisfying to complete. These scenes appear like soft brushstrokes on an empty canvas, giving shape to something you have not yet lived. And although they may seem subtle or fleeting, they hold extraordinary power. Every imagined future becomes a quiet invitation, a direction your mind gently encourages you to walk toward. Imagine yourself standing at the threshold of a new day. Before anything happens, your mind generates a handful of possibilities, a plan, a hope, a worry, a wish. Some of these visions are practical, some emotional, and some simply atmospheric. Perhaps you imagine the warmth of sunlight through a window. Perhaps you imagine sipping a morning drink in silence. Perhaps you imagine completing a task that has waited patiently for your attention. Each of these small visions helps your brain prepare, not with fear, but with a soft sense of readiness. This is the heart of guided imagery, a practice that is far simpler than it sounds. You don't need elaborate visualization skills or perfect concentration. Guided imagery is simply the act of allowing your mind to picture something you want, not with intensity, but with gentleness. If you imagine a peaceful morning, you are guiding your mind toward calm. If you imagine yourself handling a challenge with grace, you are guiding it toward resilience. If you imagine a moment of connection with someone you care about, you are guiding your mind toward warmth. These small imaginations matter because the brain responds to them almost as if they are real. When you picture yourself feeling confident, your body relaxes slightly. When you imagine a comforting scenario, your nervous system shifts into a softer state. The mind rehearses emotions before the moment arrives, giving you a head start. It's similar to how the brain anticipates physical movement. Before you lift your hand, a quiet signal prepares your muscles. In the same way, before you step into a future moment, your mind gently prepares your emotional landscape. Goal setting, when approached softly, is another way of building tomorrow. It doesn't need to be a rigid list or a strict timeline. It can simply be a narrative, a story of the person you're becoming. When you think of your goals this way, as part of the story unfolding within you, they become less of a burden and more of a direction. You're not forcing your way into the future, you're allowing it to form naturally like a river flowing along its path. You can try this now if you'd like. Think of something small that you hope to feel or accomplish in the next few days, not something overwhelming, just something gentle. Perhaps you want to feel more rested. Perhaps you want to finish something that has been waiting. Perhaps you want to reconnect with someone or rediscover a sense of ease. Picture the scene lightly. Imagine yourself there, not as a perfect, polished version of yourself, but as the you who is simply trying, the you who is growing, the you who wants to meet the future with a little more softness. As you visualize this, notice how your body responds. Your breath may slow, your shoulders might relax. The image is doing its quiet work. It is becoming a guide for your internal compass, pointing you toward a direction that feels safe and meaningful. Imagining success, or imagining ease, or imagining calm doesn't guarantee the future will unfold exactly as you picture it. But it does something equally important. It changes the way you move toward the future. When you can see yourself doing something, even for a moment your mind shifts from maybe to possible. And once something becomes possible, the rest of your brain begins aligning with that direction. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions become more supportive, more hopeful, more willing to step forward. This gentle alignment is one reason people who regularly imagine positive futures tend to pursue them more naturally. It isn't because they are confident or overly optimistic. It's because the brain treats imagined experiences and real experiences with similar emotional weight. A single, soft glimpse of a hopeful tomorrow can be enough to shift your internal landscape, not dramatically, but subtly, like the way morning light changes the mood of a room. Future building also means being patient with yourself. Not every imagined future becomes reality. Some visions drift away, some change shape, some transform into something you didn't expect. That's not failure. It's simply the mind adjusting its story as you grow. Each imagined tomorrow is a draft, not a contract, and each draft teaches you something about who you want to be. Sometimes the future feels too large or too uncertain to visualize clearly. In those moments, you don't need to imagine a whole year or a whole plan. You can imagine just one feeling: calm, steadiness, courage, connection. Feelings can be futures too. When you imagine feeling grounded, even if you're not sure what tomorrow will bring, your mind begins seeking out the conditions that support grounding. You don't need a detailed vision to move forward. You only need a direction. Right now, let yourself picture a gentle version of tomorrow, Not the tasks or responsibilities, but the tone, the atmosphere. Maybe tomorrow feels like a slow morning, or a warm conversation, or a moment of clarity. Whatever rises is enough. Trust that your mind is offering you this vision not as pressure, but as guidance, as a soft whisper saying, "Walk this way." No matter what you imagine, you are shaping the future simply by picturing it. You're writing the next few lines of your story with kindness, and in doing so, you are giving your brain something precious, a hopeful trajectory, a sense of continuity, a gentle reason to move forward. There is a gentle place inside your mind where time seems to slow down, where the pull of yesterday softens and the tug of tomorrow quiets. It isn't a dramatic place, or one that appears with fanfare. It arrives quietly, often between breaths, often in the pause before you think your next thought. This place, the present moment, is the soft harbour where your mind can rest when its inner time travelling becomes too strong in either direction. You may have felt this harbour before, perhaps during a peaceful walk or while watching sunlight move slowly across a wall. It might have appeared while sipping something warm, noticing the scent rising from the cup, or in the quiet moments before sleep when the day loosens its grip. In these moments, you weren't caught in memories or rushing ahead into possibilities. You were simply there, wrapped gently in now. This state is something many people call mindfulness, but here we might understand it as temporal balance. The ability to reside in the present even while your brain holds the past and the future nearby. The present moment isn't something you need to chase. It doesn't demand silence or concentration. It's more like a soft invitation offering you a chance to step out of the currents of mental time travel and place your feet on solid ground. When your mind has been drifting backward toward heavy memories or racing forward into imagined futures, the present becomes a quiet anchor. Just as an anchor steadies a boat that has begun to sway too wildly, being present can steady the mind when it begins to tip toward worry or rumination. One of the simplest ways to return to the present is through the breath, your oldest companion, your quiet metronome. You don't need to breathe in any special pattern. You don't need to hold, count, or control anything. You only need to notice. The moment you watch your breath even lightly, something shifts. The mind slows, not because you force it to, but because observing a sensation brings you back into your body, into the moment where life is actually unfolding. Breath is always here, like a soft thread that reconnects you to yourself. You might try noticing it now. Feel the coolness of the air as you inhale. Feel the warmth as you exhale. Nothing more, nothing less. In this small noticing, you become anchored. You're not in the past or the future. You are here. Another way to return to the present is through your senses. The brain is constantly receiving signals from your environment. The texture of the fabric near your skin, the faint hum of a distant sound, the weight of your body on the surface beneath you. These sensations are always happening in the present moment. When you pay gentle attention to them, you step more fully into the now. Touching the present through sensory awareness doesn't require effort. It simply requires a shift in where you place your attention. Think of how your mind sometimes quiets when you look closely at something small, a flame, a raindrop sliding down a window, the slow movement of your own hands. In those moments, past and future fade. The world doesn't shrink, it simply becomes clearer. This clarity is not about thinking, it's about seeing. It's about allowing yourself to experience the moment without the need to interpret or predict it. This balance is especially helpful when the mind has become tangled in the shadows we explored in earlier sessions, when depression pulls you backward or anxiety pushes you forward. Returning to the present can interrupt the loop of repetitive thoughts. It can give your brain a moment to breathe, a moment to reset. You don't need to make the past disappear or silence the future. You only need to place one foot gently into the here and now, allowing the mind's inner currents to soften. Mindfulness, in this softened sense, is not about emptying your mind or achieving perfect calm. It's about noticing when the mind has drifted and guiding it back with kindness. The guiding matters more than the destination. You might bring your attention to your breath and then lose focus after a moment. That's okay. You simply guide it back again. Each gentle returning strengthens the ability to stay present, just as each step on a path strengthens your connection to the ground beneath you. Being present doesn't mean the past and future disappear. In fact, the present is where you can meet them safely. When you're anchored in now, memories feel less overwhelming. Future thoughts feel less urgent. The present moment becomes a meeting place, a soft middle ground where the different parts of your timeline can settle without colliding. This balance is something your brain appreciates deeply. It helps regulate emotion, reduces the weight of rumination, and gives you a sense of clarity that can't be found while drifting too far in either temporal direction. Sometimes the present moment finds you unexpectedly. A breeze moves across your face. A familiar scent drifts into the air. A quiet sound catches your attention. These small sensory experiences can pull you into now, even if only for a breath. And that breath, just one, can be enough to remind the mind that it does not always need to travel so far. You can also create small rituals that encourage this return. A moment of stretching when you wake, a pause before a meal, a slow exhale when you feel overwhelmed, a glance at the sky, a quiet step outside at night. These rituals are like stepping stones across the river of thought, helping you find your way back to solid ground. Right now, as you listen, you might sense the present moment settling around you. You might feel the weight of your body, the softness of the air, or the simplicity of your breathing. This moment does not ask anything of you. It simply invites you to exist within it. And in accepting that invitation, even for a moment, you give your mind permission to rest from its constant journeys, to pause its revisiting of yesterday and its rehearsing of tomorrow. The present is not empty. It is full of quiet richness. It is where your life is actually happening, one breath at a time. And when you learn to return to it gently, without judgment or urgency, you discover that the timeline of your life feels more balanced. The past becomes a source of wisdom rather than a weight. The future becomes a source of possibility rather than a burden. And the present becomes a soft harbour between the tides. As we drift toward the end of this quiet exploration, you might notice something subtle unfolding inside you. A sense of calm, perhaps, or a soft awareness of the path your mind has walked tonight. We have wandered gently through the past, touched the edges of the future, and paused in the stillness of the present. And now, as the story settles into its final chapter, we can begin weaving these threads together into a single continuous fabric, the fabric of your inner timeline. If you look back on the journey we've taken, you might see how each session formed a small lantern along a path. We began with the memories that shape you, the echoes of yesterday that rise like warm light in a quiet room. We traced how your mind rebuilds the past piece by piece, assembling sensory details, emotions and meaning to help you understand who you've been. We explored the hippocampus, the gentle mapmaker, and the default mode network, your softly lit inner room where memories drift and futures unfold. We lingered in the future too, in those tender moments when the mind paints possibilities on an unseen canvas. We saw how the brain gathers fragments of lived experience to imagine what might come next, whether tomorrow's conversation or next year's hopes. We noticed how dreams rehearse the future while softening the past, how prediction smooths your steps, and how the prospective brain walks a few paces ahead like a patient companion. Then we turned inward, toward the self who moves through time. We explored how identity stretches across moments, forming a story that begins long before today and continues long after tonight. We acknowledged the fragility of memory, the shadows of depression and anxiety, and the quiet courage required to navigate emotional storms. We paused to honor children and animals, how they too hold fragments of time travel within them, shining small glimpses of evolution's long story. And finally, we entered the gentle practices that help you care for your timeline, strengthening memories with compassion, imagining futures with warmth, and resting in the present like a harbour between tides. If you close your eyes now, you may feel how all of these pieces fit together, like soft threads woven into a tapestry. Your brain's time machine is not a device of metal or gears. It is a living, breathing part of you, shaped by your experiences, your emotions, your imagination. It's both delicate and resilient. It remembers, predicts, reflects, learns, and dreams, all in the span of a single day. What makes your mental time travel so extraordinary is not only its accuracy or complexity, but its tenderness. Your mind carries you through your timeline not with force but with gentle intention. It revisits memories to help you heal. It imagines futures to help you grow. It grounds you in the present to help you rest. Every moment of your life is held by these quiet processes, soft, patient, and deeply human. You might think of yourself as a traveller on a path that winds through time. You've walked through chapters filled with colour, sound, and meaning. Some chapters were tender, some were heavy, some were filled with laughter, some were filled with questions, but each one shaped you, leaving impressions that helped you grow into the person listening now. And ahead of you, the path continues, lit not by certainty, but by possibility. The future waiting for you does not need to be fully imagined or fully understood tonight. It simply needs to remain open, spacious, and welcoming. Your mind will meet it with the same quiet intelligence that has carried you through every moment so far. Your memories will whisper guidance. Your imagination will offer direction. Your breath will anchor you. And with each step, your story will continue unfolding in its own, gentle, unique way. Before we close this journey, you might let yourself feel gratitude for your own mind, for its strength, its softness, its perseverance, for the way it holds your history without overwhelming you, for the way it rehearses your future without rushing you, for the way it returns you again and again to the present moment where everything is possible. And now, as the night deepens or the room grows quieter, you may sense a softness settling across your thoughts. You've walked through your inner timeline with care. You've seen how your brain moves through time not as a machine, but as a companion, one that has been with you since your earliest days and will remain with you for all the days to come. So as we close this gentle exploration, you might rest in the comfort of knowing that you're not alone on your journey. You carry within you a rich and intricate ability to navigate time with grace. Your brain holds the wisdom of your past, the hopes of your future, and the calm of your present moment. Each breath you take is part of the story, adding another thread to the tapestry of your life. And if your eyes grow heavier now, or if your thoughts begin to drift, that is perfectly fine. You're safe to rest, safe to dream, safe to step softly into the next moment of your timeline, one that is still unwritten, still open, still yours. May the road ahead unfold with gentleness. May your memories guide you, your imagination uplift you, and your present moment hold you with quiet care. Wherever you are, and wherever you're going next, may you move through your life with the ease of someone who knows they are a traveller in a story still blooming